Hi and welcome to another video tutorial on the Wild Knits Glasgow channel. Today I'm going to show you how you work the double knit button band for the Wild Meadow cardigan. If you've worked a double knit button band before, you might know how to attach it as you work it. However, in this case, we're going to work the button band separately and attach it after it's been finished. That means we don't have to swatch for the double knitting. I decided to do it that way because we have a very short amount of double knitting to do in this pattern, and I didn't want you to have to swatch multiple times. I thought it's easier if we just have to do a little bit of mattress stitching afterwards than do a lot of swatching to hit a certain row gauge. But of course, if you know how to attach it as you go, you can also do that. Please remember to use these instructions alongside the pattern. It's really just a visual guide. And if you haven't got the pattern yet, then you can find it on my Ravelry store, or if you want to, I have got little pattern teasers up on my website now, where you can download the first few pages for free so that you get an idea of how my patterns are laid out and presented, and so that you can see how the instructions are written, because you get the first instruction page as well. So I'll leave the links to all of that down below, and I'm going to show you now how you work the plain double knitting. Then I'm going to show you how you work a buttonhole stitch. And afterwards, I'll show you how you would attach a finished and blocked button band to the cardigan using a mattress stitch. And I'll show you how you get a perfect flush edge over at the top. If you have any questions, remember you can leave them in the comments below or just email me. There's a support email in the pattern, and I hope you're going to find this useful. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to knit the button band separately in double knitting, and we're going to leave one selvage stitch. And then we'll attach the button band with a mattress stitch to the cardigan afterwards. And in order to make sure that everything sits flush, you're just going to knit a lot more of your button band than you need. You're going to block it, and you're going to block your garment, and then you're going to attach it maybe up until one row before the cardigan ends. And you're going to unravel all of your button band up until that one row. You're going to do your tubular bind off, and then you can attach that last row. And that's how you know exactly where you need your button band to finish. So all you need is your contrast color yarn and your double knitting needles. I recommend a 3mm in the pattern, which is a US 2. I would say just go down 1mm in needle size from whatever your main needle is once you've swatched for your stockinette stitch. Now, the first thing that we need to do is a tubular cast on for 10 stitches, because 9 are going to be part of our button band and 1 is a selvage stitch. So that's my 10 stitches cast on. Now we're just going to turn it around to start knitting. Make sure now that you grab your yarn and that you are not losing the first stitch. So I always like to keep hold of my little short tail as I'm knitting that first stitch. So first stitch we're just going to knit because it's a selvage. Now we're going to work the setup row, which is a knit one through the back loop and then slip one purlwise with the yarn in front until the end. You can already see it. The stitch is wanting to be a knit stitch, but it's on the other way around. So that's why we have that setup row where we're going through the back loop. And you can see the little knot here, like a purl. So we're going to slip that purlwise. Again, knit through the back loop, slip purlwise. And the last one is a knit through the back loop. And there we go. And that is our first row worked. Now you're going to turn it around to continue on with the next row. So it starts with a slip one with yarn in front purlwise, and then you're just going to knit, because now we have untwisted those cast on stitches and we can knit as normal. So knit, slip with yarn in front purlwise, knit, slip with yarn in front purlwise. And then when you come to the last stitch, that's our selvage. So that's always going to be knitted. Pull and tug to make everything sit securely. And that is how you work your double knitting. So I'm just going to go one more row to show you. Wherever your little tail is, that is your selvage stitch. So we're going to always knit that. And then we're going to knit one and slip with yarn in front purlwise. Knit, slip with yarn in front purlwise, knit, slip with yarn in front, purlwise, and knit the last stitch. Now with this last stitch, because you are knitting it and then slipping it, I always like to tug on that little bit here to make it sit really nicely and get a nice clean edge. It's a bit hard to see right now, but once you've worked a little length, you can really see how that stitch just falls into position when you do that. So if you look here, if you just pull that, that stitch falls into place much nicer and neater, and that gives you a nice neat edge here when you're turning. And if you measure that, that should be about 2.5 centimeters or an inch, which is the size of all the other edges on the cardigan, so that everything looks the same. So I'm at a point now where I need to work another buttonhole. So this is what the holes look like, and they'll fit about a 15mm button. And we are beginning each buttonhole work on the side where our selvage stitch is sitting. Basically what we're doing is we're creating a yarn over which we carry from row to row, and that creates our little hole without us having to cut yarn and weave in ends and any of that. So start on the side that has your selvage stitch. That's the first one that we're going to knit. And then you're following in the double knitting pattern. So knit one, slip with yarn in front, knit one. And now we're going to turn the work around, and we're going to start working back towards the start. So go in pattern, slip with yarn in front, knit one, slip with yarn in front, knit your selvage stitch, turn around again, and we're going to work these stitches again. So knit your selvage, knit, slip with yarn in front, knit, and that is basically, you can see now where we have worked one set a bit longer, so that's where our hole will be. In order to get over to the next side, we need to create a yarn over now, and now we're going to work all of these stitches. So go over, first one is slip with yarn in front, knit, slip with yarn in front, knit, and again slip and knit, and do a little tug, turn it. And now we're just going to work these stitches, and we're going to knit the last one together with the yarn over and create another one. So slip this over, knit, slip, knit, slip, and now we have our last stitch here plus the yarn over. So we're going to do an SSK, which is a slip, slip, knit, which basically just means knit something through the back loop. So that's what I'm going to do. So knit these two together. Oops. So just knit these two together through the back loop. That's basically your SSK. And now we will need to carry this little yarn bar here up to the next row. And to do that, we're going to move it onto the left needle as if we're doing a left leaning increase. So from front to back. And then we will turn again and start our row with the slip with yarn in front. And work to the end again. And now both of these segments have basically been worked the same amount of rows. So we're just going to finish the buttonhole by going across to the very end again. So work in pattern up to the point where you have made one left. Which is here now, as you can see. And we're just going to do the same thing that we did before, an SSK. And thereby we're going back to the original cast on stitch count, basically. And there we are. Oops. There we are. And now just work in pattern again. And that's what everything looks like. So here's our little buttonhole. And I think it's very quick to do. It's a very simple sequence. If you have buttons that are a bit bigger, what I would recommend is that you work maybe 1 or 2 more rows, depending on how big your button is, to make that slit just a little bit longer, but you'd work in the same principle. And now you just continue in your normal double knitting, but that's how you work a buttonhole. Okay, I have to refilm this because the footage got lost, but I have made a new button band with the buttonholes in it, and the selvage stitch line is on my left here, which I'm going to attach to the cardigan now. So we are going to work from hem upwards towards the collar, and all you need is a blunt needle, like an embroidery needle, with some yarn in the same color as your button band. And we are going to start by going into the cardigan side. So I usually like to go in at this point. So we are roughly 1 line in from the fold, so 1 row above where the fold line is. We're going to go in from behind, and then I'm not going to go in right next to the selvage stitch because I find right next to it the line is still a little bit wonky, and that will show in your attached button band, especially because the contrast is so high. So I go into the stitch next to it and kind of halve that stitch. So if you can see here, our V is here and I'm going in between it. That just gives me a little bit of a crisper edge and I'm not losing too much in terms of width. I'm going to go in and I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail to help weave in at the end. Then I'm going to match this up. I'm going to go into my cardigan side, this time right by the selvage stitch, and I'm going to match it up and pick up 2 bars here. There we go. And this time I'm going in from the front. So coming from the back on the cardigan side and from the front on the button band side. And now you're just going to go up and pick up 2 stitches from the cardigan and then 2 stitches from the button band. And you can leave this loosely for now. Okay, and then once you have worked a few centimeters, you're just going to keep hold of your yarn tail and you're going to pull on the top yarn and you'll see how everything comes together. And there we go. And that's how you attach everything with the mattress stitch. So the tighter you pull, obviously, the tighter it'll sit. But there we go. And this little gap here will just close off at the end when we're weaving in this. And you're just going to continue like that up until you're almost at the top, and then I'll meet you and show you how you finish everything off. Okay, I've got the studio lights out, the light has left me. So I finished attaching the button band up to about 1 or 2 rows from the top. You are instructed to knit quite a bit more than what you need, because now we're going to start unraveling it up to that point, and I'm going to zoom you in to hopefully show you a little bit better. We are attached to about here, and then it looks like we have 1 more row until we'd be flush with this line here. But we need to remember that our tubular bind off is going to add length as well. So I am going to unravel up until this row here, and then I think the tubular bind off will add that last sort of row in length here. So I'm going to unravel up to this point here, and then we're going to work a tubular bind off. Okay, I have unraveled up to the point now I was telling you about earlier, and my working yarn is on the right here. So this was the yarn that was attached to all of the rest of the button band. I've cut it to size. And here on the left, I have the yarn that I used to mattress stitch the button band on. So we're going to use the yarn that was left from the unraveling of the button band now, and we're going to thread it onto our embroidery needle. And as you can see, our tubular bind off will have to start with a purl stitch, but that is not a problem. It's really simple to start off that way. So the first thing that you're going to do is anchor the stitch knitwise and leave it on the needle. And then you're going to go into the second stitch here, which is a knit, and you're going to go in it purlwise and leave it on. Just like so. And now we're going to go into this first stitch purlwise and take it off. And then you should be able to see the normal sequence of events, which is going in between the next two stitches and then going from front to back into the second stitch. So that's just like a normal tubular bind off now. And I just want to show you guys how much I'm adjusting everything all the time to get the right tension for my stitches. And now we're going to go in knitwise, purlwise onto the second stitch. And now it's just the normal sequence of events for tubular bind off. And I'm going to also just treat this selvage stitch as if I'm going to bind it off as normal. Okay, there we are. Okay, there we are. And you can see that we're ending flush with the collar here now. I'm actually going to switch over to my mattress stitch yarn tail and just finish off the binding on that side so that we have a flush line at the top at the end. Sometimes I find it helpful to just pick up one bar on each side in order to make a really close gap here. Okay, there we are. If you want to, you can also just go through these stitches to anchor them. So you could just pass over into the stitches that you have just bound off and go over to help anchor them. Okay, and then it's just a matter of weaving in ends. So this is it. This is how we make and attach the double knit button band onto the Wild Meadow cardigan. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Remember, use it alongside the pattern instructions. Pattern is up on my Ravelry. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below or email into the support email. And I shall see you again soon in another video.